content over everything.
Things can go wrong.
Give me a mic check, bro.
We got the Dawa team here.
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Dawa team running away. That's normal. Always running away.
He's running.
Inspired by Shamsi.
He's a good guy.
Right. So are we good to go? So the question is, does Christianity have apostasy laws like Islam? So for those of you that don't know, the apostasy laws, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
One
second.
Oh, yo, I need to speak. Oh, you I need to speak. I need to speak to you.
No, Ash, not yet, bro. We're just filming.
Hold on, quick.
Oh, the title.
Yo,
Right.
you're so correct.
Yeah.
So the question is, do Christians... Well, I can't stop for COE because you're filming for there. So the question is, do Christians have the same kind of apostasy laws as Islam? It's an established fact. There's very few people that would argue against it, that Islam has apostasy laws. Islam commands that if you leave the religion of Islam, having been a Muslim, you should be killed. That is a law within Sharia. And it is fair of me, as a Christian, to condemn that law and oppose that law. Now, why is it fair? It's fair because Christians are suffering because of that law. There are Christians that have left the religion of Islam that are now facing death. There are Christians in this country who have had attempts to kill them made on their lives because of these kinds of laws. Now, I want to ask all you liberal progressives and all you liberal do-gooders, not that there's any surrounding me right now, to be fair, yeah, but all you liberal progressives and do-gooders that might be watching this, you support the idea that Christians should lose their job if they are verbally critical of things like LGBTQ agenda, or the redefinition of marriage, or that they won't agree with the practice of homosexuality and they verbally speak against it. And when they lose their jobs, or when Christian bakers refuse to bake a cake that celebrates gay marriage, or when a Christian hotelier refuses to allow an unmarried couple to share a room because it goes against our faith. You condemn us, you sack us, you prosecute us for discrimination. Why then do you same liberal progressives not challenge Muslims who uphold a law calling for the death of those who leave Islam? Why the double standards? Why is our challenging of LGBTQ less, when we're not calling for anyone's death, when we're standing against that agenda because it contradicts our understanding of the sacraments? You condemn us and you punish us, but yet Muslims that are arguing for the apostasy laws and for the killing, the execution of Christians who have left Islam, you don't punish them, you don't penalize them, you turn a blind eye to that kind of bigotry. Now, Leon asks, does Christianity have similar laws? No, we don't. Not at all. There are Old Testament commands in the Old Covenant calling for those who leave Judaism to be punished. However, you're not speaking to a Jew. You're speaking to a Christian. And a Christian reads the Bible through a matrix of covenants. We read the Bible through a paradigm of covenants, which means that there is an old covenant, the associated literature is the Old Testament, and there is a new covenant with associated literature of New Testament. Christians don't reject the Old Testament in the sense of saying that these things are now chucked in the dustbin. But what we say is that because of the new covenant, the old covenant is taken to a new level. It is renewed, it is transformed by the coming of the Messiah. Christ and the apostles never called for anyone to be executed for leaving the Christian faith. That has never been a Christian practice. The practice for amongst Christians, for those who leave the Christian faith, has been excommunication. Excommunication means to be exiled from the community, to be cast out of the community, to be seen as a non-believer and to be treated as a non-believer. Now, all through early Christian history, when someone was excommunicated by the emperors or by the councils, the typical punishment would be exile. And the perfect example of that would be Saint Athanasius. Saint Athanasius stood against the heresy of Arianism. But when the Roman emperors were Arians, the punishment that they did to Athanasius was to exile him. And he was exiled multiple times over the course of his life. The punishment that is given by secular society is different from that given by the church. The church has never believed that it has the right to give capital punishment, and it never has. Capital punishment has always been the prerogative of the secular authorities. In Romans 13, it states that it is the state that is given the sword. It is the secular rulers that are given the power of the sword to give life and death. So capital punishment was given by the secular authorities. Capital punishment for heresy was something that was introduced by Christian secular authorities at the time of the Albicinian heresy in the Languedoc, France. And it developed from there and was also practiced in places across Europe from the 11th century onwards, which means that for the vast majority of Christian history, we Christians did not punish people through death because of apostasy or heresy, which means that it is something that is connected to the judgment of civil authorities. Now, how is this different from Islam? It is different from Islam in this way by the way that laws are constructed in the two religions. Within the Christian faith, we have the Christian paradigm, the narrative of the Christian gospel, which lays out for us doctrines, values, and a history. And these develop into laws based upon civil authorities reflecting upon how best to implement the values of the Christian faith. So an example of this would be the works of people like William Temple, who looked at the Christian teaching about helping the poor and argued for the establishment of a welfare state, but then it was for the civil authorities to create that welfare state based upon a reflection of Christian values. So it is a secondary movement of Christian civil authority to establish the appropriate punishment or not to a particular crime. It is not given explicitly within the Christian faith. By contrast, Islam does not see a separation between church and state, between secular authority and religious authority, and thus what is established by Muhammad as the law is the civil law. Civil laws can change within a Christian paradigm. They cannot change within an Islamic paradigm. So when Islam calls for the execution of those who leave Islam, there is no possibility of reform. It cannot be changed. You cannot undo it. It is established forever, which means that any Muslim committed to Muhammad's teachings today believes that those who leave the religion of Islam should be executed today. Now, you liberal progressive hypocrites, you who punish us Christians because we speak out against gay marriage, you who go after our businesses and you prosecute us in the courts and you try to charge us for hate crimes, when are you going to go after the Muslims who stand up for the apostasy laws? When are you going to take them to court? When are you going to charge them with preaching religious hatred? When are you going to sack them from their jobs? When are you going to kick them off their university courses? When are you going to punish them with fines and send them to prison? Now, one moment. Christians, by their civil authority, can implement or unimplement punishments depending upon the circumstances of the time and the situation. It is for this reason that a Christian paradigm is better than an Islamic paradigm for the creating of civil law, because civil law needs to be adaptive to the circumstances. If you fix law from a particular period of time and a particular socio-economic and cultural context, and then you say that this law cannot be changed, then eventually those laws will become out of date. Perfect example. Muhammad, in his ignorance, and because his non-existent God never told him, did not believe, one second, I'm still talking, did not believe and did not understand that the rising and the setting of the sun is not the same across the whole world. He believed that what he experienced in Saudi Arabia was true for everywhere in the world. But we know that's not true. If you go to Greenland, the sun rises just twice a year. But the practice of fasting, according to the Sunnah, is established based upon the rising and the setting of the sun. So, what do Muslims do? Because their law, as instituted by Muhammad, isn't actually appropriate to any Muslim in Greenland or Iceland or the northern parts of Norway and Russia. What do? They have to invent their religion post hoc after Muhammad, whilst at the same time claiming that their religion was given by God perfect at the time of Muhammad without any need to change at all. So, if they can change the practice of fasting, why can they not change the laws about apostasy? Now you can come in. Come on, camera.
Bob, several points here. I appreciate I didn't listen from the beginning, but based on what I've heard about how somehow Islam is inferior to Christianity and so on and so forth. First of all, you are asking us you complain about Christians being persecuted in this country, and your response to that is, why don't Muslims get persecuted as well? So in other words, let's replace your persecution with a persecution of another minority. Do you see how I wouldn't accept that? I wouldn't want you to be persecuted for your beliefs. Likewise, I wouldn't want Muslims to be persecuted.
Can I respond to that point?
Yes.
Right. So his point was, why are you calling for the discrimination of another group to replace the discrimination of Christians? I wasn't. I was pointing out the hypocrisy of liberal progressives who discriminate against Christians because we don't and will never accept the LGBTQ agenda to transform family and marriage, and the fact that Christians have lost their jobs, their businesses, and their places on university because they won't go along with it. But these same liberal progressives are not sacking Muslims for defending apostasy laws. That was the hypocrisy I was pointing out. Second point. You said you do not want to see Christians being persecuted. Does that mean, as a Muslim, you are against the implementation of the apostasy laws?
Okay, so can I respond to you?
Yeah, to my question.
So, no. We go back to your original points. Then I'll respond to your question. So, it's good that you're not seeking to specifically discriminate against Muslims. I take that's what I'm taking from what you're saying. As a follow-up to that, should you not surely see that, for example, in China, where Muslims are by far more persecuted, much more, but nonetheless Christians are also persecuted. For example, the Chinese Communist government, and I presume you like me, you are vehemently against communism. The Chinese Communist government are harvesting organs of not only Muslims but Christians, right? They're persecuting Christian places of worship and of course Muslim places of worship. Do you not see that instead of your hate mongering, that you can just focus as a joint alliance, almost even a temporary alliance, we'll go into the hate prohibition, but temporary alliance to combat the greatest evil that we're facing today, which is the communist regime, which is persecuting anyone of religion, whether it's Muslim, Christian, or Buddhist, or Hindu, or something.
And my question?
Your question about if I...
do you support the apostasy laws?
Okay. So, you're basically asking me... No. Relating to that question, sorry, I will come back to the question, but relating to that question, you said there is no killing of Christians who leave their religion. It's never happened in history.
I didn't say that.
No, you did.
I said the exact opposite.
No.
I said the exact opposite.
What? So that in Christian history.
If you had actually listened, I said the exact opposite.
No, you said they were exiled. They were not killed.
You didn't listen properly, did you?
No, to be honest, I walked off. So
well, there you go.
Okay,
Don't comment on something if you didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
So now I've answered about the apostasy. Do you support the apostasy laws as established by Muhammad?
First of all, Prophet Muhammad is our guide, our moral duty. Whatever he says, whatever he does, whatever he commands, that is the moral thing.
So is that a yes?
No. Wait.
Is that yes or no? Come on, man.
But the point is, the apostasy law has its context that it's specified in. For example, we don't implement the apostasy law in this country. It's a legitimate thing. We don't implement many things in this country relating to...
No. Do you agree with the apostasy laws as dictated by Muhammad?
What is the apostasy law as dictated
That
by
those
Muhammad?
that choose to leave the religion of Islam should be killed.
Is that what you understand from the apostasy law?
That's what I understand from
Okay,
the
so
apostasy
the
law.
actual...
should be executed, sorry. Executed after judicial process.
The actual apostasy law is that if someone...
Just answer whether you agree with it.
Because,
yes or no.
Because you're asking me to agree something that
Does anyone want to hear him answer the question?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Answer the question.
No.
Do you agree
You don't get to frame
that
the
a
debate,
Christian
Bob.
who has left Islam should be executed after judicial process? Do you agree?
The actual...
Do you agree, yes or no?
If you're not interested in a proper discussion, then, so the actual apostasy
Go
law...
on, tell us what the actual
apostasy law is, if someone is publicly opposing Islam, for example, it has left Islam and is starting to insult Prophet Muhammad, insult Islam and so on, the judge takes him. Again, there are even differences of opinion in this matter.
Just get to the point, bro.
No. If you
He's dancing around.
Stop dancing.
Answer the question. Do you believe whatever the qualification?
You're asking me a question of
Because you're not answering it.
No.
Do you believe
But the question,
that
Bob,
my
is very
friend
important.
Kryptonite who left Islam should be executed for leaving Islam?
Fair question.
There has to be
It's a
manner.
fair question. Answer the question.
There has to be a certain mannerism in the discussion. Okay.
Well, try practicing it, bro. Answer the question.
Okay. So
You're superimposing
in Islam, if the apostate, if someone leaves Islam and is publicly leaving Islam, insulting Islam, and historically that meant also siding with the enemies of Islam, then the judge takes him in, questions him, gives him 3 days to repent. If he still insists on his position of publicly hating on Muslims, attacking Muslims, siding with Muslims' enemies, then yes, the apostasy law...
Okay, let me just address what you heard.
Yeah.
We talked about 3 things.
All right.
So firstly, should Christians oppose the communists? Absolutely we should.
With Muslims.
Not with Muslims. We should oppose communists. We should oppose communists full stop, regardless of what the Muslims do. If the Muslims ally with the communists, we should still oppose the communists.
We defeated
The
communism.
communists have killed more Christians than any other ideology in the world. More Christians have died at the hands of communists than any other ideology, including Islam. I also stated quite clearly that Christian civil authorities did practice from the 11th century onwards until about the 1700s capital punishment for heretics and apostates.
Which you condemn wholeheartedly now.
Which I would not call for the practice of today.
But you condemn or not? I mean, it's.
I would not call for the practice of today. By contrast, stood here today in the 21st century in London, you heard a Muslim argue in defense of the execution of Christians who left Islam for the punishment, he says, of abusing the Prophet. That means when I point out that Muhammad was a paedophile who had sex with a 9-year-old child, I would be abusing the Prophet. Kryptonite, who is a Christian who left Islam, and one of the reasons why he left Islam is because he couldn't accept a prophet marrying a 6-year-old girl and then having sex with her, at 9, and note the aggression. Note the aggression. When you point out the reality of what their prophet did, they consider it an insult. He tells me to fuck off in the park. But imagine what our society would look like if people like him ever gained the reins of power. Imagine what our society would look like if these Salafist punks ever gained the reins of power. I'll tell you what we'll look like. We'll look like Syria. We'll look like Saudi Arabia. We'll look like Iran. We'll look like Egypt, where Christian churches are bombed, where Christians suffer from anti-Christian pogroms. We'll look like Pakistan, where Christians are bombed in parks, where their churches are bombed, killing women and children. We'll look like these kinds of societies. And all of you liberal do-gooders who buy into the narrative that someone points out this information to you is some kind of hate mongerer, you are the kind of monkeys who put their hands over their eyes and their ears and their mouth. I see no evil, I hear no evil, I speak no evil. No, as Christians, we offer something better than Islam. We offer something better than Islam. We offer Christ as our example and the teachings of the apostles who emphasize, come and stand here. Come and debate here. Okay, ask one question and then I'll answer. What's the question? From
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
In the Roman bath.
Even Steve knows more than you. I know more than you. You don't know anything, bro. Julius Caesar invaded England in what year? What year? What year?
I don't care.
What year?
All I know that.
What year?
I don't know
what year?
I don't care
what year? What year?
Why does it matter?
It does matter because he made the argument that the Roman Christians invaded